Thank you. Hey, it's nice to see a good crowd here. Thanks. Hey, I wanted to first of all start out by thanking everyone who came here today. Thank you to Carol Miller. She's going to win in the 3rd Congressional District, no doubt about that. And I have to tell you, I'm very honored that Donald Trump Jr. has come to West Virginia. I have to tell you, this president and his family, I think, have a love affair with our great state. And I've said that I hope they move here. At a minimum, they get vacation homes here. Because, sir, you're welcome to come back. And you can stay here between now and the election if you'd like. Yeah. We are all very fortunate that we have a president that cares so deeply about our state. And so that's why it's so terrific to be here today, because we know that the Trump administration is looking for a strong ally in the U.S. Senate. I know over the last year and a half, I've been watching, you've all been watching, this is one of the most consequential presidencies we've seen in a long time. President Trump gets it. He understands that we needed to get rid of all the onerous, job-killing regulations out there that have really targeted our state. He's been working on opiate abuse. He's been focusing on reducing tax burdens for job creators. This is an incredible record. And on the issue of judicial picks, there are record-breaking numbers of judges that are being nominated and confirmed by the U.S. Senate. On issue after issue, on things that West Virginians care about, President Trump has delivered. So it's especially terrific to have someone from the Trump family, and Donald Trump Jr., I think, is doing a great job getting out talking about these incredible results for our state. Now, this is a special day for me. I want to emphasize we have a great chance of winning, and this race could determine whether the GOP controls the U.S. Senate in 2019. And I intend to win this race. And part of the reason I think we're going to win is there's a phenomenal contrast between my background and Senator Joe Manchin. I think if you look at the Manchin record, it's about supporting liberal policies and liberal politicians. Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer. One of the most important reasons to ensure that Joe Manchin doesn't get reelected, I don't want to see him cast his first vote for Chuck Schumer if he were to get back there. Fortunately, we're not going to have to worry about that. On the other side, you have a conservative fighter, someone who's been in the trenches fighting for our coal miners and their jobs, been going after opiate abuse very, very aggressively, and has been working with the Trump administration to help advance their agenda. Whether we're talking about all the regulations that have been pulled back or the Trump tax cuts, this is someone who gets it at a fundamental level. And I think one thing that West Virginians can know, when you have a president that comes to your state 4 times, and we're hopeful he'll be back a lot more, that really says something. Remember how we went years between Barack Obama visits? That's because he had a bullseye on our state. We have the exact opposite right now. And let's be clear, Joe Manchin stood with Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. I stand with President Trump, and we're going to institute significant change in that Senate. President Trump's going to have an ally, and there's going to be a conservative. We're going to wipe out all those job-killing regulations. I'm going to keep focusing on opiate abuse. We're going to keep being more aggressive than anyone probably in the country with a comprehensive plan, and we're going to make sure that we have the right judges on the bench. So it's my pleasure, and I'm honored that we're getting such strong support from this administration. And I couldn't think of a better person to come down and open it up than the president's son. Let me tell you, he knows what's going on in West Virginia. I know he's going to talk about it, but this guy's a hunter. He's a fisher. He's been in our state before. I know he has a good relationship with our governor, and he really cares about our state. He understands what's going on here. And I think that, once again, I'm not joking when I say, come, buy vacation homes, set up shop. I mean, this guy will put a tent up. I know he will. And he'll keep doing...
He's lived in worse.
He's lived in worse, right. So he'll do great things for our state. I'm going to close with this note before I turn it over. I think President Trump has said it best about Joe Manchin. And I'm going to quote him from an interview he had with the New York Times. You know, Joe Manchin. Joe's a nice guy, but he talks. but he doesn't do anything. He doesn't do. Hey, let's get together. Let's do bipartisan. This is the president. I say, good, let's go. Then you don't hear from him again. I like Joe. You know, it's like he's the great centrist, but he's not really a centrist. I think the people of West Virginia will see that. President Trump understands you can't be all things to all people. Joe Manchin's days of putting his finger in the air and not standing up for West Virginia values are soon coming to an end. Thank you, Donald Trump Jr., for coming.
Well, thank you very much, Pat. I really appreciate it. And I think you hit it best, because for me, as an outsider, I watch, and I've seen Joe Manchin for years. He gets on Fox News and does the pretend conservative thing, but then he votes against tax reform. Look at what tax reform is doing for the people of the state. He sides with the EPA on all the excessive and oppressive regulations that are killing our mining industry, which is not just mining and jobs. It's also energy independence, which is national security as far as I'm concerned. Amen. He has a bill with his name on it, taking on and challenging the Second Amendment, putting all sorts of restrictions on it. That works wonderfully if you're running for mayor of New York City. It does not work if you're trying to be a beneficiary, an example for the people of West Virginia. I know that. I've traveled the state, I've traveled these parts of the country, and it's amazing. So my father nailed it. I mean, you talk a good game, you pretend you're one thing, you do the opposite, you side with the Chuck and Nancy's in DC, and that's exactly what people are sick of. That's what Trumpism was all about, which is taking on that establishment, not just doing that. And maybe he started off 10 years ago and he may have been great, but now he's become part of that swamp. That's the thing that everyone rebelled against. That's what West Virginia, I mean, the statistics were what? We were the largest landslide separation during the general since Abraham Lincoln, and we actually beat him by a little bit. We won't talk about that because he was pretty good. We won't get into those kind of details, but think about that. The people of this state, they get it. They've been forgotten, they've been left behind, and they've been left behind by one of the two people representing them in the Senate. We have an incredible opportunity to fix that. We have an incredible opportunity to right that wrong. We have an incredible opportunity to have people on our side that are willing to fight for America for a change. As I said during the campaign, I turn on TV. We should be more concerned about people in far-off lands that hate our guts, hate our feelings, hate our religion, hate our freedom, than we should about our own people. We should just deal with that and accept that. I'm saying, I don't understand. As the father of 5 young kids, it's about them. I want to make sure that America, as I know it, is there and around for them. And that's not who we have representing us on the other side in DC. When you look at what's going on, now that we're basically at the 500-day anniversary, any matrix, whether you want to look at job numbers, unemployment numbers, stock market, they're incredible. Women's unemployment, 60-year low. The last time was World War II during that ramp up that you had numbers this low. African American unemployment, below 6% for the first time in history. Hispanic unemployment at all-time lows. The only problem is we need more people that are skilled to fill some of these jobs. We're creating so many jobs. I mean, those are the kind of problems I want as a country. When I see what you've done as it relates to tackling the opioid problem, which is such a problem and just discriminates across every demographic equally. I love seeing that, and that's what we need. We need actual fighters. We don't need more talkers. We got plenty of talkers in DC. We need actual fighters, and that's who this country elected in my father. And as you've seen, he's willing to do that. He's willing to keep taking the fight. He'll take on the media establishment. He'll take on the DC establishment, frankly, on both sides. And he'll do that aggressively. That's what we need in this country. They're not going to make it easy, but imagine the successes that he could have and continue to have if he had 1/10 the support from the media, 1/10 the support from the other side that perhaps Barack Obama had. Just think about it. Look at the accomplishments with this cloud that's been over there, with just the noise and the hysteria. But I think it's working well because reasonable people, real people all across the country, they see it. The quote I kept seeing the most was, "The people are dying in the streets everywhere." I go, man, really? If that's true, that's big news. I haven't seen it. But that can't be the response to everything because you don't like Trump. Hate and nonsense is not a party platform. And that's all the Democrats have right now. Because they have there's no matrix that they could say, this is why you should elect us right now. They have no message. They have no platform other than hate, but hate's a powerful motor. We have to understand on our side, our people have to understand that if Donald Trump, just because he's not on the ticket, doesn't mean that every success that he's had, every policy he has, everything he's been implementing, that's all at stake. So whether he's on the ticket himself or not, he's on the ticket. So our side has to get that. They have to realize that. They have to get out. They have to vote. And I think, again, we can show our politicians in D.C. that we have to be catered to. You have to listen to us. You can't just forget about what I call the dark zone of a country, everything between New York City and Malibu. You know, that big red area that no one's talked about in 30 years, 50 years. It's incredible. You can't forget us. We matter. And I know that you, Patrick, are going to be fighting for that incredibly. So I really look forward to doing that. I look forward to coming back. May have to do the home or the tent thing. You know, you have a backyard I can sleep in. And we're going to have a lot of fun. But I think we have an incredible opportunity to take on, one of the ultimate establishment people here. Because, again, you can't say something on Fox News one day and do the exact opposite the next day and not get called on it. Not anymore. Not with this new sheriff in town. And I know that won't happen with you in there. So I really look forward to doing that. And Carol, look forward to helping you as well for your race. And we can make a big difference in West Virginia. And I'm just looking forward to being a part of it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. Guys, we're happy to take any questions from the media here.
When's the president's next visit to West Virginia?
I think you'll have to ask the president, but I imagine he'll be over here. It's a pretty close trip, and I know he came a lot then. I'm sure he'll come up a bunch now.
What do you make of Joe Manchin's large fundraising advantage? It's about $4 million as currently.
Listen, I think that's always a big deal, but that doesn't surprise me, and I'd be curious. I think the people of West Virginia should probably look into where those dollars are coming from. Amen. All right? I imagine, like our race in the general election, that's coming from California and New York City, et cetera, and maybe we do something to combat some of that, but those are the people who are funding those campaigns that are going to dictate policy that does nothing for the people of West Virginia. So, that is a deficit we'll have to overcome. That's an obstacle that we're going to have to surmount. It's not impossible. That is not, an impossible task. I mean, we did that. We did it with, 1/5 of what Hillary did it because we had a real message. We were able to speak to real people. We were relatable. The irony of all ironies that it took, sort of the billionaire brash guy from New York City to be able to talk to real blue-collar, hard-working Americans. But he had a message, and they believed that he was going to stick to it. And now, promises were made and promises have been kept. And that's what we're going to do here. And we just need more people on that team. Again, I think real people get it. I think real people watch the hysteria every day with the sky is falling media, the Dems, screaming people are dying in the streets. And I have to believe that the rational people that I know in this part of the world, and I know plenty of them, they're saying, man, I just love what's going on. I love what he's doing. I love that he's fighting for us. I don't necessarily look at it as that big a problem. We'll figure that out. And you can do a lot with truth, with the resolve, and with message.
Can you talk a little bit about coal? Why the need to designate it as a national security interest?
Well, I don't know if it's officially designated. I think energy independence, when you look at the countries around the world who have generally been suppliers of our energy, and when you look at places like Russia who are big energy producers and stuff like that, when we have these assets, these minerals in our own ground, that doesn't mean we have to mine them with reckless abandon. That doesn't mean you can't do it safely. That's crazy. There are ways to do these things, but to not take advantage of these resources, guess what? The energy is going to be produced. It's going to be produced somewhere. If that's the case, I want that job to be here. I want that money going to families in America. I want that money then and the tax revenue associated there with educating our children. So we're not number 28 in the world where we currently stand in education, behind a long list of third world countries that spend a fraction of what we do per capita. Okay? That's not rocket science, guys. The fact that this is even debatable is almost ridiculous to me. Again, what do I know? These are important things. That we wouldn't do that if, we're the Saudi Arabia of natural gas. We have all of these things there to tap them, to create the technologies to be able to do that more cleanly, to do that more effectively, to be able to utilize them. I mean, that's what this country's been all about forever. We can't neglect that because a couple people in California are screaming that this is not the way we want it. Well, it's very easy for them to do from their gated communities in Malibu. It's different. They don't even understand it. I mean, that was one of the great things I saw. We were talking about stories from the campaign trail. I'd go around, and this is oftentimes for even people in our own party. I'd campaign, I'd do an event for them. They're saying, Don, that's amazing. You got in front of a stage of, pipe fitters, whatever it may have been. You know, how is it that you, the son of a billionaire guy from New York, can relate? It's like, well, A, we're builders, we do this stuff, so I get it. But it shouldn't be that difficult. Who's the Democratic, I think she's a congresswoman up in Illinois. She's running workshops to teach other Democratic congresspeople how to speak to their constituency. I mean, think about how stupid that is, right? You live amongst these people. You want to represent them in Washington, D.C. You don't know how to speak to them? You need a workshop to train you how to do that? That's the problem with D.C., and that's the problem with the other side. They're in their little bubble world. They go there, they talk amongst themselves, they have a conversation of 3 people, and they've solved the world's problems. It doesn't do anything for the people living in their backyards. And I've seen that time and time again, and that's what people revolted against in 2016. So I'm going to keep fighting to solve that problem because it shouldn't be a problem. The fact that we're even talking about it is almost asinine, and yet it's a real issue. So this is why we need real people that understand, that have fought for people's values, for their understanding, for the people in their communities, and actually done it. Not just paid it lip service, because there's a big difference between talk and action. My father covered that as it relates to Joe Manchin about as thoroughly as anyone could do.
And just to follow up on coal, talking about the Black Lung Fund that's paid for by taxes on coal mines, it seems that that's going to be cut in half at the end of the year. Is there anything we can do to make sure that fund is in place so that coal miners who serve, in the mines can be taken care of?
I don't know enough about it as it relates to that policy. I know that we're about making sure that these guys are employed, that we're utilizing this energy, that we're doing that for America. I mean, when you talk about all the electrical generation that's done in America, I mean, that's coal power. People say, oh, electric cars are the greatest thing. It's like, yeah, coal-powered cars. Because that's where it's coming from.
That's right.
Let's not forget that. Hillary Clinton, who Joe Manchin very readily endorsed. What was it that she said about coal miners? I think you'd remember better than me. We're going to put them out of work. Joe Manchin, from this state, is endorsing this person. He sided with Barack Obama on 83% of his votes. Think about that. How does that at all align with the people of this state? The answer is it doesn't. But because he's been here for a while, because he's been entrenched, because of the media narrative, no one sees that. So I think we have to point that out to people. And once they get it, they'll open their eyes, and they're going to vote for Pat.
But you talk about the importance for coal, but then the administration is doing something that by 2050, Government Accountability Office says we're borrowing $15 billion for the healthcare needs of these coal miners that have the black lung. So it sort of seems that there's a little bit of a disconnect.
I don't think there's a disconnect at all. I mean, I don't think that anyone could get up here with a straight face and say that there's been a presidential candidate that's done more for coal since the advent of coal than my father. So I get that it's a talking point. I get that it's a soundbite. But I think in the grand scheme of things, as it relates to employment, as it relates to keeping these businesses alive, as it relates to putting these people to work, no one has done more for that industry.
And I want to add to that point that a lot of these funds are derived from the strength of the companies. And when the companies went bankrupt or they went way down, then obviously a lot of the money that went to fund those very benefits, the pensions and other resources, that obviously was in decline. You have a president that is doing everything imaginable to lift coal up. And I know this president is committed to helping the people that mine the coal in the ground, that we're able to get black lung. I'm very committed to that as well. There's no one in the state who's fought harder for coal miners than Patrick Morrisey, and it's been great to work with the president. On day one, we literally went over to the White House. We started working with the White House staff on all those regulations. That's going to continue in the Senate, whether the issue is black lung, the Obama power plan. This is a president that cares about coal and coal miners.
And so if elected, would you be able to maybe try to work on this and to make sure the money is there for the coal miners?
We're going to make sure that coal miners are protected, and that's important. They gave up all for us. And just to add another point to that, coal is a national security issue. We're talking about the electric power grid, and so much of it is dependent upon having sufficient coal supply. So if you have too many of these coal-fired power plants that shut down, that's not only bad for coal miners in West Virginia, that puts the needs of the country's electricity supply in jeopardy. It puts the needs of our defense in jeopardy. And that's why I'm so pleased that the president recognized that and is working with our state.
Is that fair to the natural gas and all the other energy sources?
I
Is
think
fair?
that we want to make sure that all forms of energy have an opportunity to compete. But look, coal suffered dramatically in the previous 8 years. You had a president that put the bullseye on our state and tried to dramatically reduce the amount of coal that was mined and used. So I think it's very important that we recognize the damage that the government did to our state.
Is the White House concerned about Don Blankenship making it on the ballot?
I don't think this race is about Don Blankenship. This is about Pat Morrissey versus Joe Manchin, and I think you have a clear winner in that one.
But
White
he's
House
making a play.
canceled-
He's making a play for the ballot, and if he gets on, there's a chance he could cannibalize the vote.
You know, I'm not a legal expert, but in what my analysis doesn't seem like he has much of a chance there. And again, this is a two-party race.
Does Friday's action go against the conservative belief of free market economics, of letting the superior growing industry take over, let, declining industries like coal, fade away? Does that go against conservative
Now,
economics?
look, I mean, you had a government policy that was trying to wipe out coal and coal miners. That was the active policy of the United States government under Barack Obama. If a government comes in and wrecks your home, wrecks your town, wrecks your county, yeah, I think it's important for government to help fix the problem. I'm as free market as you come. I'm a staunch conservative. But what the government tried to do to coal over the last 8 years before President Trump was absolutely outrageous. I think it's critical we recognize the importance of coal, not only in terms of the general energy needs, but its importance to national security as well. So it's very consistent, and we're going to work on all the right options because we need a market-oriented system. But when government comes and tries to wipe out one form of energy, listen, I mean,
It's kind of anti-free market.
yeah, that's anti-free market. You got to be able to, put the pieces back together. I think that's all the president is thinking about here.
Mr.
Mr.
Trump
Trump,
Jr.,
Mr. Trump,
on-
can you address concerns your family is in talks to purchase the Greenbrier?
We're not looking to purchase the Green Power.
The White House
Why does
canceled
your
its
story
visit-
keep changing on the 2016 meeting? Just that memo came out this weekend about it.
It doesn't at all, but you can go look at the details in the transcripts.
The
Your
White House
story has
canceled a meeting with
changed.
the
It went
Eagles.
from you were meeting about
What's that?
adoption to other issues.
The White House canceled its meeting with the Eagles over the issue of the national anthem. We had to know
That's
that
not
was
an issue
coming.
here, so
Why have
this is
that
about a
meeting?
different race.
Would you lastly maybe touch on the opioids, just what you're continuing to do, the priority for funding, and what, I guess, if elected, what you would do and kind of what the administration's continuing to do?
Well, I'll start by saying that I'm really excited that in the U.S. Senate, we're going to have a much bigger platform to continue our efforts to fight the senseless death that's occurring. We've been as aggressive as possible going after this problem holistically from a supply, a demand, and an educational perspective, going after enforcement aggressively, working to change some of the failed government policies that led to the exponential number of pills that flood into our state and across our country. And I know down at the Greenbrier, I had the good fortune, I was able to sit next to the president, and I raised that as an issue, and the president talked very movingly about the importance of addressing opiate issues. I think this president understands that you need, in order to have a strong economy, you need to have a workforce that's capable of manning all the jobs that are out there, and we need to make sure we get people better in their head and in their heart. And I think President Trump is going to be a great partner there. This is going to be one of my top priorities in the U.S. Senate. We've done a lot in the AG's office. We'll do even more from that platform in the Senate.
For Mr. Morrissey, there are 39 AGs that have signed on to a letter to say the CARES Act should be amended to involve penalties on wholesale manufacturers. You have not signed on along with 10 other attorneys general. Is there a reason for
Yeah,
that?
I
Do
think
you
we
plan
should
to
go
sign on?
further. I actually think that the language that they put is inadequate, and we need to reflect this. I was asked this question earlier today by a reporter. When you have specific intent that people are engaging in acts that may kill people or there may be such gross negligence, there should be serious penalties. So I'm going to be very hard on those who knowingly introduce products into the marketplace or push pills the wrong way. So I would go even further, and when there's evidence of wrongdoing, I think that people should go to jail. But we have to make sure there's intent and there's evidence. So a lot of times these letters get written, and so they express the belief of a lot of different AGs. You'll find my actions on these issues have been very hard on those who are in part responsible for this epidemic.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Hey, thanks. That's good. Appreciate it, man. All right. Take this. Guys, thank you. Thanks to this guy for coming in. Going well. Thanks, man.
No last name.
Yeah, no, you're good, you're good.
Biggest fan. Next to me. Next to me.
Yeah.
I was like, is that Nathan? No, it's Steve. So,
Hey, how are you?
Nice
Nice to see you.
Trust me, I understand it. It's fine.
Yeah.
So you got who you got.
How are you?
And you with the.
Hey, how are you?
So I'm gonna go.
How are you? Great to see you.
Obviously. Selection committee. So,
Yeah, let's grab a coffee right
Yeah.
here.
Let's have a little group shot here.
Yeah.
I do.
Okay, cool, we'll shoot for more, let me,
We'll talk